Hi there, it's Karen Kennedy here with Real Food Matters. Today, we're going to make chicken broth, but not ordinary chicken broth, because ordinary chicken broth is where we put some chicken into the pot and make it. This is where I want to show you how to take that chicken broth, a finished chicken broth, either from your chicken, or I want to show you how to make it out of just store-bought chicken broth and turn it into something that you're going to put in the freezer for when you're sick. Because I'm recording this right in the middle of self-quarantine during the coronavirus epidemic. And I know that either I'm going to get sick or someone I love is going to be sick, a friend, and I want to be able to drop off some fortified chicken broth for them so that they have something to drink to kind of replenish themselves. Because sometimes you need a little something while you're sick, and a broth is wonderful. And especially my mom friends out there, nobody takes care of them. And this is something I can send to them and put on their doorstep. So the things we're going to use are an onion, which I have sauteing in my pot over here. I have carrots and celery and some garlic. And those are the main ingredients that you're going to use. Now, the other things are going to vary depending on your tastes and what you have. I'm going to use thyme and parsley in mine because both of those have either like the parsley at the end will add potassium and vitamin C to it. And the thyme is a great medicinal herb for when you're sick. It can boost your immune system. Actually, it doesn't boost your immune system. It's antimicrobial, antiviral. So thyme is great. And the other things, special things I'm adding are reishi mushroom, and I'm adding some astragalus root. And that's because both of those things are wonderful for supporting a healthy immune system. All right, so let's go. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So I'm sauteing some onions, and I just put olive oil in my pan. I heated my pan, heat the olive oil, and then add my onion. Doing things in that order keeps things from sticking. Heat pan, heat oil, then add onions. And I added some salt. If you have a store-bought broth that already has salt in it, you want to make sure you keep your salt minimal. You want to have a reasonably salty broth to finish with because it's good for a sick person to get a little salt in their system. But I don't have any salt in my broth, so I'm adding a generous amount of salt to break down my onions. They're broken down pretty well. So the next things I'm going to add are carrots and celery. And because I'm going to make this broth and strain out all the vegetables at the end, I'm not going to bother with cutting up my vegetables really small. So I'm just doing a rough chop. Can you see this? I'm going to do a rough chop of my celery. And I don't know if you saw, but I use the celery heart. You know how your celery will come, you'll get this nice bunch of celery with these big things that are good to cut up for kids for celery sticks. And in the middle, you get these hearts with the leaves. These are great for your soup stock. They're super flavorful, and you might not like them for, making ants on a log. You do make ants on a log, right? Right. And then I'm going to rough cut my carrots, same thing. And what the carrots are going to do for you is they're going to add beta carotene in there, which your body will hopefully convert to vitamin A. And beta carotene is also a great antioxidant for your body, which we need, especially when we're sick. And carrots sweeten your broth. So those are going to saute for a little while. And I'm going to add more salt to help my vegetables break down. Now while that's going, I'm going to give you this trick. I say this all the time whenever I'm dealing with broth. We're going to add some extra gelatin to this. Now, I think this Pacific Foods already has a fair bit of gelatin in it because when I pour it, it's really thick, which is a sign that there's already some protein in there, some gelatin. But they don't always have that, and I think a little extra gelatin doesn't hurt. And if you've been sick a while, you can use some extra protein for healing. So I take any unflavored gelatin. And this is Great Lakes. You can buy this off Amazon. Some of you are vegetarian and don't want to have are particular about the species that you get your gelatin from. People who are Muslim or Jewish, you don't want the pork gelatin, so make sure you get like a grass-fed beef, a kosher gelatin. People who don't mind, you could use the Knox blocks, what is it called? In a little packet that you'd make Jello out of. You can just use unflavored gelatin. That usually comes from pigs. This comes from beef. You can also get marine gelatin from fish bones. You can get that if you really don't want to have anything from beef or pork. But I'm not bothered. This is a nice brand. But really, during these times, use what you have. So I'm going to put a couple tablespoons in there. And you have to add gelatin to cold broth and just let it dissolve. So I just sprinkled it on top, and I'm going to let this sit. I'm going to add more broth to this pot, but that's just a little cup of gelatin, a little cup of broth, with a little powdered gelatin, and I'll let it sit. Okay. So I'll let my veggies break down. Now, because I'm going to cook these vegetables in the soup for a little while, I don't have to be so particular about them breaking down before I add my broth, because I'm going to really cook them. I'm going to cook the crap out of these vegetables because I want all of the goodness of the vegetables to go into my broth. So they go into the sick person, can just sip it like tea. So now I'm just mashing some garlic. I'm rough cutting my garlic in here. And, you can make any kind of flavored broth, and there are herbs from all different parts of the world that are antiviral, antibacterial, good for supporting the immune system. You don't just have to use Chinese herbs or Ayurvedic herbs or Western herbs. You can use what you have. I like the thyme and parsley. I like that flavor. It appeals to me. But another flavor combination that I like that is also great for colds and flu, and I would assume coronavirus, is maybe garlic, ginger, and cilantro. And I might even add a little bit of soy sauce. Oh, there's a photobomb back there. You're in my picture. You can also add some soy sauce to it, so it kind of tastes, I think it would taste great. So, you could still add all these same things, but maybe not use the thyme and parsley. But when after you add your garlic and let it cook a little bit, I might add my ginger towards the end, grate it up and add ginger towards the end, and then a little bit of cilantro, actually as much cilantro as you want, just for maybe a couple of minutes, and then take it out and strain it out, to just give all that flavor and all those wonderful healing properties of cilantro. Doesn't that sound great? All right, so I've just coated my vegetables. They've broken down a little bit. You could let them go longer if you get, interrupted by something. So now I'm not going to add my parsley. Remember, fresh herbs always go in at the very end for just a couple of minutes. But I'm going to put in my thyme, and you can use dried thyme that you get at the store. That's perfectly fine. I happen to have a couple of very robust thyme shrubs outside, so I've got a little, Joshua tree of thyme here. And I'm going to put in my astragalus, and I'm going to put in about this much astragalus, and I'm putting in this much of that reishi mushroom. You know why? I know putting in more reishi mushroom would be better, but it makes the broth taste super bitter. And if I give this to my kids, they won't drink it. So if a little bit helps and they'll drink it, that's better than a lot. So I put that in there. Is that everything? Yeah. And now I'm just going to pour in. I'm going to fill my pot. Keep watching, because at the end of this, I'm going to give you a tip on freezing. All right, so there's all that chicken broth. Oh crap, my dog's in the cupboard. Get out, you. And then I'm going to put in the broth that I dissolved the gelatin in. And I think I'll probably add a little water to that and a little more chicken broth, but I'm going to let that sit. Now, how are you going to freeze this? Do I have any jars? I'm back. So I'm going to give you a tip on freezing these. You can freeze your broth in plastic containers or whatever you want. I like to use glass, and I think it'll transport well if I give it to other people. But here's the tip. When you fill this for the freezer, if you fill it all the way full and freeze it, it will expand and crack your jar. But don't be scared, because I do this all the time and I have never cracked a jar. And here's how I do it. I fill it up and I leave enough, I leave some space so that it can expand. And then I put my lid on. First I put the inside lid on, and then I put a piece of tape all the way across, and I label what it is, the date, chicken broth. And then with the tape underneath there, then I screw the lid on, because that lid will hold the sides of the tape down and the tape won't come off in the freezer. You can also write on this, but I like to reuse my lids for things like this. Okay, so only fill it like 85% of the way, label some tape, put the tape underneath the ring, put the ring on top, and then when you freeze it, lay it on its side in the freezer, kind of the head up a little bit, and then you'll get this nice big air bubble at the top that'll allow the liquid to expand and not crack your glass. And then when it's frozen, then you can stack them up however you want. And when you need it, you can take your frozen thing of broth and put it on your friend's doorstep lovingly, and they can have some broth while their children watch 24-hour YouTube. Okay? Or you can thaw it out for yourself or your own family. Oh, I know what you're asking. How long do I let this boil for? Well, you know, I guess the longer the better, within reason. I'm gonna let this, I want the vegetables to be really mushy, so I know that all the stuff's got in there. So I think I'll let it cook for a couple of hours, and then I'll strain it. I'll put a strainer through and strain it into a big jar, and then I'll press down and smush out all the goodness from the veggies. And then I'll take that and then aliquot it into smaller jars, maybe even smaller jars than this, but this is a pint jar. Okay, so that is your sort of extra fortified chicken broth for sick people, so you have stuff. Oh, that's my new puppy, Ozzy. Isn't he cute? All right, that's it. Be well, you guys. Stay home. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.